Thank you for being here this morning. This is our closing plenary session. It's hard to believe that our presentations have now concluded. The ones I heard have all been terrific, and I'm hearing reports of how great all of the sessions have been. So we'll talk more about the symposium after we get done with this particular session, which is about what could I do with a GLS degree. And as our kickoff, our Professor Jim Kincaid pointed out that perhaps the appropriate question is, what could I do with the GLS experience? So we'll address both in this session. So I am very pleased to welcome as our panelists to kick off our discussion three individuals that were kind to give up part of their Sunday morning for us. Keri Shurtliff is to my immediate left. Keri received her BA in art history from Dominican University of California. She continued her studies at Dominican, receiving her MA in the Humanities with an emphasis in art history. For the past 9 years, Keri has been teaching art history courses at the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising in the General Studies and Interior Design departments. In addition to her teaching duties, she has served as lead instructor for 2006 to 2012, where her duties included mentoring, curriculum assessment, and review. After 8 consecutive years of being nominated, Keri was voted by the class of 2012 as Outstanding Faculty Member for the General Studies Department. Yeah, congratulations. Keri has served as the academic reviewer for the 8th edition of Jansen's Basic History of Art and the forthcoming 9th edition, and is a member of the College Association, CAA. Oh, College Art Association, I'm sorry, CAA. Chris Wittenberg our gentleman in the middle. Chris was promoted to Associate Director of IT Operations at Loyola Law School in May 2012. He is responsible for staffing, budget, and policy in support of the help desk, server management, and telephone systems supporting the law school. Chris joined Loyola Law School in 2009 and has been instrumental in changing service policies for the technology department, and he serves on executive committees overseeing graduation, strategic planning for technology in support of education, and co-chairs the Technology Innovation and Policy Committee. He has worked at educational institutions such as University of Southern California and the Art Center College of Design. Chris has a BS from Azusa Pacific University and is a 2009 graduate of our Master of Liberal Studies program. He presented his thesis evaluating the effects of despatialization on traditional modes of conversation at the 2009 GLS Symposium at Stanford. Eileen Cohen, on my far left, is the Associate Provost and Executive Director for USC's Continuing Education and Summer Programs, and is a lecturer in the Dornsife College of Letters, Arts, and Sciences. Eileen previously served as Senior Associate Dean in Student Affairs and the Executive Director of the USC Career Planning and Placement Center. She is the former Executive Director of the Career Center at Columbia University. She has conducted research with student athletes to determine how they choose their careers and has studied the influence of faculty on student career choice. Ooh, scary thought, faculty. She is often quoted in the media in the areas of work and career transition. Eileen is a graduate of the College of Mount St. Vincent and Seton Hall Universities, and she's a real comrade in arms of mine here at USC. To kick us off, Keri, when you graduated from Dominican, did you anticipate using your liberal studies, humanities background in your career?
Intend on using my degree. That was the reason I went to graduate school and continued at Dominican so I could continue my studies with Dr. Leslie Ross. My intention from my first class as an undergraduate at Dominican was to teach. And I knew in order to have any type of, maybe not tenured position, but position in academia in the field of art history, I would indeed need a master's degree. So,
Anything else you'd like to share about what you're doing now
Sure.
with your degree? And
sure.
that as a backdrop?
Yeah. In addition to teaching art history courses, because of my humanities degree, I'm also able to branch out with other courses. I teach a seminar in the arts course for the General Studies Department, in addition to the Survey of Western Art classes. And for the Interior Design Department, I teach a Survey of Architecture and Interior Design, as well as other design medium courses for that department. And because of the foundation that was laid with the humanities program, my familiarity with other humanities genres have made it possible for me to branch out. So I'm not pigeonholed into the art history discipline.
Not pigeonholed. I think that might be one of our themes here. When Chris applied to the MLS program, I was very struck by his willingness, his commitment, his passion in his statement of intent for wanting to put himself out of what his box was at that time. I mean, he was really, he knew it was going to be tough, he knew it was going to be uncomfortable, but that's exactly what he wanted to do, and I've always appreciated that and admired about that of him as a student and now as an alum. So, Chris, how did that work for you?
I will try to project. It doesn't sound like it's very loud. It's worked out really well. I didn't know exactly what I was going to get from the program when I went into it. It was just a very selfish, I wanted to expand my sort of horizons of what I wanted to learn and what I wanted to be about when I worked with different people. Coming from a technology background, you work by yourself a lot. But if you're successful with any job, right? Eventually they ask you to be management, and you maybe don't have that background. So I looked towards this program to help sort of expand or get me into different areas. And I had a kind of epiphany moment when we were in this program where I was told to read about Indian cuisine, and I thought, well, how pointless is this? But what it kind of taught you is that you bring things with you. You bring opinions about things with you, and it taught me to really sort of stand back and be open to different people's ideas, different people's perspective, and that is, not knowing that it would, has really played into my current position at Loyola Law School, where I manage people who have grown up in different countries. So I have a Scotsman, a guy from the Philippines, I have someone from Ethiopia, and someone from Russia, and two people local. And they had a really difficult time working together. They had two managers prior, try to get everybody to work together, and I think by expanding what I know how to do and bringing that from this program to that job, that's really what resulted in my recent promotion back in May of this year. So.
Great. Congratulations. Thanks. Eileen has worked a lot with students and alumni, and has, from all her tales that she could tell from her years with the Career Planning and Placement Center. Eileen, what advice could you share with us?
Well, I really liked the reference that Jim made to think about your experience as part of a degree program versus what the degree is that you hold. First question I always want to ask someone when they come in, why did you enroll in this to begin with? There was a reason why you felt there was a gap in your experience. So why is it that you did go ahead and do this? And when you get near the end of a program, we often forget that and go back, and somewhere you probably made a note to yourself, or read your original application statement of purpose. See what it was that you were really looking for, and did you get that out? From the employer side, you hear the media, college graduates can't get a job, college graduates, oh, and gosh, help you if you're a liberal arts major, or gosh, help you if you've got a graduate degree. I mean, why don't we all just go up to the top of the building, hold hands, and jump? Because that's kind of what we would do if we believe the media. The reality is, my time in New York, my time here in Los Angeles, surveying employers, the things they want are communication skills, and they want people who can solve their problems. And I think what you just referred to is the ability to manage a diverse population of employees, because you're coming to this situation. 2 of your previous managers failed because they didn't have your background. And it's what you bring to the table. Also, what I think every one of us, when we are working, whether we're teachers, whether we're marketing, whether we're CEOs, we are always going to have a customer. Whether that customer is the person you're selling something to, providing a service to, and you don't develop a relationship with a customer on the basis of your competence in a particular technical skill. You develop a relationship with a customer because you recognize a painting on the wall, you have a common interest in sports, you have a common interest in music, you've read a recent book, you can talk about what's going on in Egypt, and you have an ability to make a connection, because that trust level to buy your product or service is going to be based on a trust with you as an enlightened individual, not you as the salesperson of this box. So I think it's really important that you step back and say, okay, from this experience, what have I learned? Do I communicate better? Writing, platform skills. How has my problem solving improved? Can I think of specific ways in my research, in my interaction with faculty, that I could talk to an employer about this experience and give them an example of how I can be successful in their particular workplace?
I'd like to invite any of the program directors to weigh in if, I know you're not shy, so.
This is certainly always a question that comes up in any of our information sessions. Our students, while they may not be seeking career change when they come to us, every single one of them is seeking change of some kind. I see our mission during their 4 to 5 years that they spend with us to help them define that change and redefine it and change it and challenge themselves. And then I see our mission as providing them with the education, the facility, and the courage to go ahead and make those changes. Some of our students do use the MLA program as a springboard into PhD graduate work at Stanford and at other places, but very few of them do. Most of them, though, all of them, by the time they have finished the program, have gained in intellectual courage, in the kind of rigor that allows them to sit in the boardroom, to participate in meetings in their jobs with courage and conviction, and even with the courage to say, I don't know, but I can find out. Mm-hmm. I think virtually all of them advance in their careers because of the relationships that they have created, because of the, as I say, the personal intellectual courage that they've developed within these programs. And some of them change careers, some of them reinvent themselves entirely. I think it's an education in courage.
Great. If you were a graduating student and you had a limited background in the workforce previously, you obviously couldn't simply say, look, I have 20, 30, or 15 years of experience in this area to back up the fact that I can integrate this degree to make my employment meaningful to help you achieve your goals. So my question is, how would you sell yourself as a graduate of a liberal arts program? Because I think that that's one of the things that we, as graduating students, are looking to do. It seems like the identities of marketing majors are much more clear-cut, and therefore when we walk into interviews or we apply to the job, it seems they have an advantage in how they're supposed to be tailoring their strategy.
I think a valuable skill or something that you could pronounce when you go into this type of interview situation is that if you are going in for a job that's very specific, you're a programmer, you know, right? It's sort of laid out for you, but you're saying, well, I have this degree, and it's not a specific, trade almost. But what I think that you can say about this is that you have experience in a wide variety of things, so that you problem solving, working with people, and these are incredibly important types of skills to have, because when you can communicate about different varieties of things, you're open to what they're asking you. A lot of that is a conversation when you do an interview, and you're trying to find this common ground, and you can talk about different things. I think the wide variety and the almost non-specificity of this program sort of helps you to branch into anything that they're going to throw at you. Whereas if you come in with a very long background in a specific area, you know, I've worked in education a lot, and I've looked to go out of education. They don't want me because I have an education background. They want me in education. So I think that it can go both ways, and if you're open to it and you just speak more about what you bring to it and what you can solve for them, and I think that's very worthwhile.
So problem solving and adaptability is a really important skill that would set you apart.
When I hire people, I rarely look at their resume. I almost hate to. It's the conversation I have with them. Do they take when I say, here's a situation, and I want to hear what you're going to do with it, and then I sit back and I don't help them answer that question, and I want to know what they're going to do. How are they going to solve it? How are they going to think? Are they going to give up and be silent in the interview? I want to know that you have drive, and that is important to me over, you know, I can't tell if you're a programmer. I'm going to look at your code in this interview, you know. And so that's why I say that that it sounds weak. It sounds like it's not a specific thing. It's an incredibly important thing, I think. It's underrated. Everybody else wants to talk too.
Okay, let's let Eileen, and then we'll move it back to Keri, and then we'll take some from the audience. Yeah.
So first of all, start with what you want to do, okay? And sometimes that's more difficult to figure out than anything else. But I'm glad you brought up marketing, because I was a history major, and my first corporate job was in marketing at AT&T. I had no knowledge. And by the way, this was before DIRT, so it was before the internet. There was no way to research. So I went and found out what were the introductory marketing texts at Harvard University in the introductory marketing class. And I went and got the books. Now, it's really, everybody makes, I'm sorry if there's a business major in the room, but there is this myth. And number one, the business majors are as nervous as you are. That's number one myth. The second thing is you're going to be hired first job out of college, a little bit on GPA and a little bit on your knowledge of a particular area, technical skill. So if you want to go do marketing, you need to do your research. And now with the internet, you can just get the basic buzzwords and be able to have a conversation. And I think what's more important is you learn about the place you want to work, you understand the culture, you research what problems they're trying to solve, so that when you go into an interview and you're asked this question, well, here's a problem, how would you solve it? They're looking for a new pair of eyes to solve that problem. And you're going to be able to come at that from a much broader perspective than someone who has narrowly focused, as you had mentioned, in this particular discipline.
And that's good.
That's a very good thing.
I also think, and this is particularly true with teaching, understanding diversity and tolerance are two very important factors in the world today. And with a degree in liberal studies, liberal arts, or humanities, it's a more well-rounded approach that we've gained through our education. We're exposed to many different cultures and many different areas of the arts. And in turn, that allows us not only to be more appreciative, but more understanding of others. And I also, something that Eileen brought up, the internet is such, I mean, we take it for granted because we use it on a daily basis, but when I was in graduate school in the late 90s, it was just starting. And what the internet has opened up and allowed us to do, the opportunities that are available and the resources that are available to us as a whole now are just extraordinary. The thought of having to go to like books and phone books and things like that, I mean, that's what I was doing. I was looking through phone books And I remember when I graduated in '97 from Dominican, I had a stack of manila envelopes that were all addressed to different galleries, different museums, different schools, and my resume was stuck in every one of them. Now you can just email them off. I mean, I brought a stack probably that big to the post office upon graduation, and I heard back from one. I mean, it was really discouraging.
I think if we've done our jobs well in the program, you're also all taking away skills for critical listening. And that would be, I see a lot of nods, that would be something that should be on another top of your list. Barbara.
Maybe just to clarify a couple of points too, is where you're talking about the interview, and yet, you know, what steps you have to take to get the interview. Or there may be two different kinds of interview. There's the interview when your resume has risen to the top and you've been brought in with a few other candidates maybe to be considered. Or maybe there's the exploratory interview when you're first out there, maybe making connections with somebody in an area you're interested in, and it's not actually the job interview at that point. Yet it's obviously clearly really important, and if you've made a strong impression, that person's going to remember you when a position does come open at that institution, business, whatever. So I guess I was making that distinction, but I also think about just being really explicit about some things that we may take for granted. And I speak for myself because I know our program well, and it's not necessarily the same at Reed as it is at other places. But for example, our small classes, which I assume most of us have, what is that demand of you as a student? And you can't assume that somebody else really knows that you've had to maybe read the material a couple of times, you've written out questions, you've brought to the conference your own perspective and questions to it that are going to generate conversation among a variety of people of different ages. So it really is your responsibility to be very explicit about what kind of experience you had and what kind of skills that this experience required of you and that you have developed over that time, maybe even expressing how you have developed that. So and also in particular, maybe somebody on the panel said this, but moving outside of your comfort zone, that's what I think these programs do, is that you're risk takers. You're willing to put yourself on the line with a group of people that you don't necessarily know, and express your ideas about a particular work or theory or idea that that not a lot of people don't do this, and so I think again to be very clear about that process can be helpful.
One of my main interests is cultural diversity, and the fact that we are entering a new world, a global world, where we have to know, or where we're expected to know, or where we hope to know a lot about different countries, different cultures. And from my point of view, I think that the Masters for the Humanities offers you the opportunity to learn more than just one thing. That aspect of interdisciplinary is very important. It merges, as you said, both sides of the brain, and it allows you to understand things that you would not have been necessarily exposed to before. It gives you a mental agility, I think, to connect the links. It gives you, I think it's been said before, and I think that's important, it's more than just learning something. It's sort of relearning yourself. It's sort of reinventing yourself. It's sort of, it becomes part of who you are. So that is something that you can present, certainly in interviews and when you're looking for a job, or even in just ordinary conversation, I think.
One of the questions I'd like to ask some of the faculty that are here is, what is it about this kind of student demographic, this student population, the graduate liberal studies student, that is why you like to teach in it?
This student population, I think everybody who's taught or experienced this is so wonderful because it makes the faculty job so easy. You just get out of the way. and let people encounter one another, whatever the material is you're teaching, and as they grow in confidence and assertiveness, everything happens in that connection. The teaching is simply trying not to talk too much. So it's quite wonderful.
There are a couple of reasons why I really love teaching in the humanities program. One of the first is that I think when you're teaching students who are often from different backgrounds and are working adults and have families or work responsibilities and have a lot of other things that are pulling on them, there is an expectation and a requirement, I think, from me to do a better job, because I have to always understand that these hours are so very precious and so very dear. And when students come into the classroom, they've already said, I believe that I'm doing something very special with my life and I'm going to make the time for it. And I have just the utmost respect for people who are willing to make the time to continue to grow themselves and to develop these relationships with other people. And I think the same as Jim, I try to not talk too much, because you know how sometimes when people get together in a big group, they come up with lots of really bad ideas. I find that in the humanities program, that the exact opposite happens. You see how it is that a group of people can get together and be better as a whole and come up with more innovative solutions, more creative solutions, more empathic solutions to ideas and problems and questions that any one individual could have.
I believe, Michele, you mentioned about the humanities, and the crux of the humanities is studying what it is to be human. And I think when you study what it is to be human, you develop, again, a more well-rounded approach. And I think that makes you able to put yourself in any situation and be able to adjust to that situation, and again, being more tolerant and just being more accepting for diversity. But if you, and I'm just gonna go back to the question that the one lady in the front asked, you know, how do you market yourself with this type of degree? And I think that if you, rather than, you know, so much focusing on your experience, especially if you're a younger student coming out of the program, all life experiences provide you with experience. And I think that's a little rhetorical, but if you go back and look at everything you've done and what you've gained from that, and then couple that with your educational background, it all begins to, you begin to see the interconnectedness of it all. I hope that made sense.
I see a nodding of heads, so it's connected.
Yeah, and to be quite honest, when I graduated, my first job, it was awful. I mean, I didn't land where I was supposed to be until my third job out of graduate school. So, and I guess that's another, you know, piece of advice, I guess unsolicited. Don't get frustrated if your first job out of graduate school isn't your goal. It took me a couple of years to get where I'm at right now. But that first job, oh.
A couple of years? I think some of it's taken more like 25.
I mean, give us some advice here.
First, just as a follow-on, I think many of us had the first job that was the job from hell, but I think what we want to think about is what were the skills we brought and how are you progressing? You know, on that worst day in this job, you're still learning something. The day you stop learning is the day you have to move on. But the other thing, I think, just to your program, one thing that's never talked about when they're talking about a skill set is curiosity. And I think the ability to ask questions and keep asking questions. You know, think about it when you were 2. What did you always say? Why? Why? What's that? Why? You just take that. That's how we discover new things. That's how we develop our creative aspects of our personality. You've got to be able to continue to ask those questions, and you have to be curious. And if there's one thing I think you get in this degree, is you learn how to be just crazily curious.
So, any last words from our panel? We've got them talked out. Okay, so here are some of the keywords that I jotted down in the course of our time together. The graduate level study student and alum has the ability for intense curiosity, the capacity to keep asking questions, has educational courage, is compassionate, has a capacity for empathetic tolerance, has mental agility, is a creative problem solver. Do you feel good about yourselves now? I want to thank all of you for participating, thank our panel for joining us today.